Hangout is on the air and is live. Hey, everybody. Welcome to We Are Worship Wednesdays. I'm glad to be back. I've kind of been gone.
Welcome back, Morgan.
So I'm excited to be back, and I'm real excited about our guest today because we're basically family. So we have Mr. Richie Fike here with us from Louisiana, and Richie is a songwriter at Integrity Music, and he may or may not have written a song that you know called We Believe, sung by the Newsboys, and he leads worship at the chapel at LSU, but he says he doesn't worship LSU, but he just leads worship there. So
others may, but I cannot.
Yeah, he knows who to worship, so we're glad about that. And I want to let you know about our free songs of the week and our free hymn of the month. So this week we have a special going on. We got 2 for the price of 1. And if you go on We Are Worship, you can download I Know Who You Are by Planet Shakers and You Are For Me by Carrie Job. So we have 2 free song of the weeks. And then our free hymn of the month is on the throne by Desperation Band. And so you just go to We Are Worship USA. Is it WeAreWorshipUSA.com?
Yeah.
WeAreWorshipUSA.com. I thought it was just We Are Worship. See
both works.
Oh, well, look at there. We just took both of those domains in case you.
Yeah. Well, WeAreWorship.com is geotagged. So if you're outside the U.S. and Canada, then it will take you to our UK website. But this will take you straight to our U.S. site. So that's a little cheat.
So go download the songs at WeAreWorshipUSA.com.
There you go. And we're really excited to have Richie with us today. And Richie is just an awesome songwriter and worship pastor and has a great heart for the local church. So we're excited to talk to him about what it means to be a worship pastor, what all that entails. So Richie, can you first maybe share something about yourself that maybe people won't know about?
You're secretly a Razorback fan.
Oh, man. You know what's funny? I have to tell you, okay, so and I hadn't planned to say this, obviously, but we were just in this production meeting, and we were talking about our services. And we're doing this big prayer night in June. So chapel people, if you're watching June 9th, we want to see you there. So we were talking about putting a banner up somewhere in the church, and that may seem archaic or old on some level, but this gets to your question, Wisdom. I am a secret closet wrestling fan. I still love wrestling. Now, I know it's fake. I get all that. So if you didn't know that, sorry to ruin your bubble. There is no Santa Claus. But one of the things they do after the Royal Rumble, which is always in January, after the Royal Rumble, everything is setting up towards WrestleMania, and so stay with me. So they do these vignettes where like the guys are like in the ring and they're talking about their dreams or whatever, and there'll be a banner like right behind them, like in plain view, like right here. You see where my hand is? And so it'll be kind of off in the distance, and once in a while they'll start to they'll look back at that banner. And then the whole crowd will be like, yeah, WrestleMania. And it gets you so fired up about WrestleMania. And that's the point of it. And so I said in our meeting, what if we had like a big banner that said, prayer night. And, in the middle of our worship service, everybody just kind of looks back at that banner.
There you go.
Oh, it got voted down. They didn't like that. But, so whatever. But so that's probably one thing that not many people would know, but I'm happy to share it with you today.
That's great. And I really like this title that you decided to use for this webinar called C over E, the work of a worship pastor. Yeah. So what's the story behind C over E? Is there like something special about that?
Yeah, I've got a super good friend in Dallas, Texas, Brian Poppy. What's up, Pop, if you're watching? Poppy is an Anglican a church planner.
Cool.
And just in the last year and a half, he's really gaining a lot of momentum in his church. It's awesome. And he and I were talking about, how do you measure the worth or the work of a worship pastor, especially in their world, the world of Anglicanism, worship is this very rote, very routine and ritual approach, almost like Catholicism. And so, but he wanted to kind of approach modern worship with an Anglican approach to the Word and to Sunday mornings. And so it's fascinating. So we had all these conversations about how do you even measure the worth or the work of a worship pastor. And so I asked him, I said, so are you talking about like Monday through Saturday and like, the coffee meetings and being in the Word and preparing for Sunday morning? Or are you actually talking about literally the 25 to 35 minutes on the platform on a Sunday morning? He's like, yeah, that's what I want. That's what I'm trying to get a hold of. And so in the midst of talking about all of that, I was like, that's an interesting question, because I think a lot of senior pastors can't really put their finger on what it is they want from their worship guy and what it is they're measuring on a given Sunday morning. They can just say that was a good Sunday. And you go, why? What made it a good Sunday? And they're like, good question. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I just put together just this little kind of simple idea of the C over E, and you'll see what I mean when you see all the different points. The C over E is a chord that is in motion. If you're a musician, you know that. You wouldn't linger on a C over E for very long. Usually, if you're thinking in guitar terms, at least, you might go C over E to an A minor, right? And so it's always a chord that's in motion. And so for me, that's a helpful thought. The work of a worship pastor is constant motion. You're not lingering anywhere for too long because you're spinning all these different plates all at once. And so that's where the C over E idea came from.
Gotcha.
So,
That's cool.
Yeah, so there are these 4 little acronyms that talk about the work of a worship pastor.
So I got to tell you, as a guitarist or wannabe guitarist that can play basic worship songs, I hardly ever play C over E. I don't even know how to play C over E. I know how to play D over F sharp.
Well, you capo
just capo it.
Capo 5 and play a G over B. You're playing a C over E.
Yeah.
So there you go. Just to be fair, I came up with the words of this thing before I came up with the C over E thing. It just was a nice little add-on. So
love it.
Right.
So do you want to tell us about the acronyms?
Yeah, cool. So the first one, and I really think this is maybe the most important one. If there's one thing that marks for me a terrific dynamic worship experience, it's this idea of expectation. Was there a sense in the room of great expectation that the people are coming, not hoping, not sort of like, it'd be cool if the Lord showed up, not kind of laissez-faire about it, and certainly not routine about it, but they're coming with just a big expectation to meet with the Lord. And so the first C of E is cultivating expectation. If there's one thing a worship leader can do, you can't lead the horse to water, right? Or you can lead the horse to water, but you can't make him drink. The one thing we absolutely can do is to paint the picture for the people of this great, big, holy, righteous, powerful, victorious God who is intimately interested in meeting with you today. Whew. You know what I'm saying? Like if you can paint that picture and say, now, look right here, here he is. This is the God that we're going to sing to today. And just sort of get their eyes lifted up from off of the things of the earth onto the things of the heavenlies and to see Jesus for who he really is. Well, then I think he'll do the rest, And so if we can cultivate a level of expectation, if we can communicate to the people that this thing that we're doing is not about music, it's about the spiritual realm of ourselves connecting with the spiritual realm of heaven. If we can do that, and that's not just a weekly, that's not going to happen in 1 week. If you're going to develop a culture in your church of expectation, you don't get to do that in 1 week. You do it week after week after week after week. And gosh, that's what worship leading is, especially if you're going to be a worship pastor. because you're interested more in the people. You're interested in connecting with their stories and their hearts and helping real people, engineers, doctors, teachers, plumbers, helping real people who don't necessarily know every cool worship song that's out there, but helping them to enter into more than music, but to enter into the presence of the Lord. I don't know how. To me, when my senior pastor compliments me, when he comes up to me at the end of a Sunday or on a Monday morning in our meetings, and he says to me, "Man, great songs yesterday," it doesn't really do much for me. I mean, just to be real, great songs yesterday. Okay, that's nice. But when he says, "Bro, you really set the table. You really encouraged us to enter into the presence of the Lord, and you made it seem like we really could. You made it seem like that this great big God was accessible to us." Gosh, I mean, I don't know what else. How else do you want to be complimented as a worship leader? Because I can't get either of you guys to worship Him. I can't do it, but I can show you who He is, and if I do that well, I don't know how you don't.
I think that sets a good worship leader apart from a great worship leader, because I think sometimes people just get on stage and sing the songs and they don't think that they have to do anything else other than that. And saying that this is probably one of the most important things that a worship pastor or worship leader can do is give the expectation, like, here, you are here to worship. And I don't know, I think that's great. I think that's a great starting point too for worship leaders to know, okay, this is a job that I have to do. I'm not here just to sing songs. I'm here to lead people in the presence of the Lord.
Right. And that word cultivate is it's constant. If you cultivate a garden, you don't do that once a year. Right? Yeah. You continue to come back. You water it. You care for it. You make sure it gets sunlight. And so, as I talk to our huddle kids, we have, in fact, right after this, I have huddle here at our house. Young worship leaders from our church who are growing in their talents all the time. Shout out to all of you guys. Our huddle kids, that's the number one thing I really harp on them. Cultivate an attitude of expectation within yourself that I'm not just going to sing songs today. I'm going to interact with Jesus. That's first. And then second, with your worship team, that they have that attitude. And third, that the body kind of buys into that idea. And, our church is a Bible church. It was planted by Billy Graham in the 70s. And these people at this church are sweet, wonderful, loyal, composed, dignified people. So there's not going to be a whole lot of shouting. There's not going to be a whole lot of dancing around the aisles. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. But they will buy into whatever the word says. So if the word says we should do it like this, I'll just show them, hey, here's the word. Word says this. Let's do that today. They're like, great. Word said it. Let's do it. Mm-hmm. Right? And so I think what happens a lot with worship leaders is we assume that everybody in the room is as immersed in this culture as we are. And they're not. Mm-hmm. They're thinking about the soccer game that they might be late for if we worship one more song. You know what I mean? Like they're thinking about life. And that's okay. They're people. They're supposed to be thinking about life. But in this moment, in this time we have together, this precious 20 or 25, or if you're lucky, 45 minutes, this precious time we have together to sing to the Lord together, let's make it about expecting that something more than music is going to happen. Mm. So, All right, so number two, because I don't want to run out of time. Number two is crafting experiences. That happens Monday through Saturday. It absolutely does, right? When you decide that you're going to teach a new song, that doesn't happen on Sunday morning. It happens Monday through Saturday as you're learning and making chord charts and working with the band and talking about how you're going to transition from this song to this song. What's the lighting going to be like, the video, the sound? All that stuff is crucial. And oftentimes, if you don't, I mean, it'd be cool if you had a program director or if you had a music director. I don't have any of that. I'm the guy. I'm the worship pastor at my church. All that's on my plate. I'd love down the road for there to be more people that are doing more of that stuff. But for now, I'm responsible for that. And I think, the percentage of house light, the percentage of stage light, the volume, how much the ratio between bass and treble, all that stuff, all the stuff that worship leaders and sound guys have to think about, all of that is to craft an experience so that people, normal people, can enter into it with as few distractions as possible, right? And so, again, senior pastor evaluates on a Sunday morning. Hey, how was worship yesterday? It was cool, except for that one part where the electric guitar was just like clanging out of control, and it was the only thing I could hear. Well, that falls into this category, and it's absolutely something that should be evaluated. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that's an important piece of being a worship pastor, is caring for every element. Like when the bass player forgets to put his case back behind the stage. Well, who's responsible for that, right? When a light bulb goes out, and whether it be a stage light or a house light, who's responsible for that? And so, what are we doing here? Yeah, that's right. My huddle kids, they're responsible. Yeah. I'll tell them you said that wisdom. So number 2 is crafting experiences. I'll go to 3. This is probably my favorite one. I think it's not the most important, but it's my favorite because it's my personality. And that is calling out expressions. Calling out expressions. Mm-hmm. We had this great debate, and it really was a great debate amongst a lot of our leaders last year. Glenn Packiam wrote about it in a blog post he wrote, and the question was shouting, lifting your hands, dancing, all those sort of verbal, loud expressions of praise that composed, introverted people are not super comfortable with, right? All of those things. Are those things A, allowed, B, encouraged, or 3, commanded? Right? And so we had these biblical conversations about all this, and we ended on really D, which is exhorted. Exhorted. And exhorted is a word that means strongly encouraged, right? It's not just, let me encourage you. It's, hey, this is really good for you, and you should eat your greens.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's like exhorted. It's strongly encouraged. And man, worship leaders have the right and the responsibility to do that. Not so that they can reap the rewards of seeing all the hands in the air. I've said this before, and I really think it's true. God doesn't as much want our worship for him as he wants it for us, right? When we lift our hands, what is that doing for us? He loves us. He knows that moment when we're fully free, fully uninhibited, fully engaged in the presence of the Lord, that moment where we let go of all of our insecurity, all of our fear, all of our doubt, all of our shame, all of our sin, and we just give all of ourselves to the Lord, that moment is the best thing that will happen to us that day. Mm-hmm. Right? And so, like, God doesn't want lifted hands from us. He wants them for us. And so while that's not in any way the only expression, the only viable expression of worship, it's a really good one. And the Lord wants us to do it. He strongly encourages us to do it. He doesn't demand it. He doesn't say, if you don't do this, you're not good enough. But he wants it for us. And so, in the middle of a song, come on, sing out. Come on, let's, in this moment, we're about to sing the bridge of I'll Stand with arms high and heart abandoned. Now, the bridge is doing a lot of work for us because it's telling the people what's expected of them. But there are, I believe, 30 to 35% of the people in the room who are bucking against the idea of, I'm not going to do it just because you told me to, And so I can't tell you to. It's like, sorry to divert myself, but it's like that Lord lyric in that, I forget the name of it. It might be Royals, but she says, I'm kind of over being told to put my hands up in the air. So there. Do y'all know what I'm talking about? Mm-hmm. I think that is such an honest statement. And I think a lot of people in church are kind of over being told to put their hands up in the air. So there, but so I'm not saying we should tell the people what to do. I'm saying we should encourage them. We should free them up. We should give them permission, and we should exhort them to engage in the fullness of what God has for them that day. So calling out expressions.
So do you think, not to go on a rabbit trail, but do you think we need less of those type of songs that say like we lift our hands or, lift our voices, that type of songs?
I think it's just, where we're headed, to me, worship wise, there are only, in my opinion, there's only 5 or 6 really big brands that when they put out a record, those songs go to every church, Hillsong, Bethel, Gateway. I think even Desperation to a certain extent. When they put out records, they have a broad enough reach that those songs are going to make it to almost every worship leader, and then they pick and choose their favorite songs from those records. So, but I say that to say this: if you're a songwriter, if you're a worship leader, if you're a songwriter / worship leader, you should write songs that your church needs to sing. You shouldn't write songs that my church needs to sing. That's not your business. You know what I mean? Like, you should write songs that for your church. So, right now for our church, we just wrote a song with McClarney called "We Will Not Forget." And I'm so excited about that song because our church, the chapel on the campus that's been around 40 years, that was planted by Billy Graham, we don't want to forget what God did. But man, he's not done. And we need to sing these lyrics. Our church needs to enter into this idea. And we just introduced it last Sunday at our church. And the way people responded to it was indicative of what was needed. They were like, man, we need to say that. Mm-hmm. So all that to say, do we need more songs that say, I lift my hands to you? My church does, because my church is still learning what that means. But I don't think Bethel doesn't need that. Everybody already lifts their hands at Bethel. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So to me, it's about where you are. It's That's about good. Serving your people. Yeah.
I like that.
All right, I'll give you the last one, and then you can give me questions you have. The last one is creating evangelists. Creating evangelists. I believe, and I'll stand by this until heaven, and I'm proven wrong. But I believe that there is no more evangelistic moment in a given week than when an unbelieving person walks into a church experience that's filled with expectation, where the experience of worship is vibrant and dynamic, and people are expressing themselves biblically and genuinely to the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. When someone who doesn't know God walks into a genuine worship experience, I don't know how, unless they're just the jerkiest of jerks, right? And the coldest of hearts. I don't know how they walk into that and they don't go, hey, what are they all looking at? What is this? What are they all looking at? Right? What is this experience they're having that I'm not? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The word says that if the Son of Man be lifted up, that he will draw all men unto himself. So what have we done? We have, by creating a worship experience where real people, doctors, lawyers, plumbers, right? Real people are engaging in the Holy Spirit and meeting with the Lord. We have created a room full of evangelists. That's what we've done. And they are telling the story better than any preacher ever could, because their hearts are fully engaged and fully engulfed in the presence of the Lord. So if you've done that, worship leader, you win. Right? Because now the pastor gets up and he gets a chance to say, man, the Lord's here today. I know he's here. Many of you are interacting with him even now. I just want to encourage you to press in, to lean in. And if you don't know this Jesus that we're all engaging with, just open your heart right now and ask him to reveal himself. Boom. Right? And so I don't know, man. Like, to me, I think there is no more evangelical moment in a given week than that moment, that 20 or 30 minutes when the body is fully engaged in the Lord. Now, how often does that happen? I mean, I guess if you're at a place where there is a culture of great expectation and people are really genuine about their worship, it happens every week.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we often measure success in a worship service by the externals. How many hands do we see lifted? How many people were slain in the spirit, or whatever. But you can't measure it. I look out at the body at my church, and I really think that they are fully engaged. They're just very modest. They're very dignified, and they're not going to throw themselves on the ground, And so, but their worship is no less genuine. It's no less riveting than anybody else's. And so I look at that and I go, I think we're doing it. I think we're accomplishing our goal. So that's my 4. That's the C of Rees. Just to repeat, in case you joined us late, cultivating expectation, crafting experiences, calling out expressions, and creating evangelists.
Awesome. Well, we do have some questions in the live chat, and Simeon, I think, asked, what do you do? This is concerning the last thing you discussed, is what do you do, though, if you say that to someone to open up and ask God to reveal themselves and nothing happens? I think you're muted.
Sorry, I had to blow my nose. Sorry. The pollen count is high and so forth.
Yeah.
I don't believe that nothing happened. I'm not to like disagree with the premise of the question, but something happened. That person may never have asked the Lord to reveal himself, and he just did. And I don't think have you heard that Bethel song, the new song, you don't give yourself in pieces, you don't hide yourself to tease us. Have you heard that song?
Yeah.
I think what's fascinating about that song, I love Bethel, big fan. The reason I would not do that song is because it alludes to the idea that God hides himself, and God reveals himself. God's not a hider; he's a revealer. And so it says, "You don't hide yourself to tease us." Okay, well then, why do you hide yourself? Do you know what I mean? And so, but that's more of an English, like hanging. What's that hanging participle? Whatever it is, right? It's more of an argumentative thought. God doesn't hide himself, and to me, the Lord is the one that draws. It says, "Lift him up, and he will draw people." Right? God's the one that does all that work. So if I'm you and you're the worship leader and you're asking that question because you're concerned about what might or might not happen, don't concern yourself with that. Let the Lord answer that. Let the Lord fill in that gap between that guy's heart and his presence. I just don't believe that the Lord would hide himself in that way.
Yeah. Divine Music asks, as leaders, do we need to encourage more? Scripture reading before every worship set.
Yeah, I do that. I start every worship service with scripture.
Okay, I guess that was one question. It came a little bit later, so I was like, "Oh, okay, that's one question." That's the same question.
We're for our huddle meetings. We always, one of us leads worship, and today's my turn. And so I'm going to read Luke 7, the passage where the sinful woman, as she is called, breaks the bottle of perfume at the feet of Jesus, and Jesus says, her sins, and they are many, are forgiven. And so I'm going to read that whole passage. I'm actually going to have them read it. We're going to read it, and then we're going to sing Jesus, We Love You in response to that. And so, to me, I mean, if you're going to really, we had this conversation last week at Huddle, how would you define worship? There's 100 different ways, but the simplest way is our response to his revelation, right? When God reveals himself, we respond. And so whatever that looks like, whether it's Tuesday afternoon, I sense the Lord telling me I should give this homeless guy at this, bus stop. Who's at a bus stop? I don't know who's at a bus stop, but I should give this homeless guy $20. Well, you're responding to the Lord's revelation, right? Whatever it is, whatever it looks like, it's way bigger than Sunday morning. But on Sunday mornings, a lot of times you got to give people a chance to think about what it is that they're responding to. People come in off the street on Sunday morning having argued with their wife or their husband the whole way to church about bills or about, juniors failing 8th grade. What are we going to do about it? I don't know. Well, church is about to start. We better get in there.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, why aren't they worshiping? Because the troubles of today are real. And I don't think you make light of that. I don't think you go, hey, that's not important. God's important. I think you go, hey, you know what? A lot of us are walking into this service with burdens. A lot of us are walking in with questions, with concerns. A lot of us are walking in with praise because God's really been great to you. Isn't it cool that God can meet all of us in the same place in different ways?
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that awesome? So look, whatever it is you're dealing with today, I want to show dignity to that. Your concerns matter. They matter to him. They matter to me. They matter to you, right? And so I'm not saying do away with them, but I'm saying the Lord says we should cast our cares upon him. So can we do that today, church? Can we take a moment, just even before we ever sing a word to the Lord? Let's just cast our cares upon. You know what I mean?
That's
just
good.
Even that little moment, that little interaction, that little word from the pulpit or from your platform allows people to enter in, allows people to go, oh, okay, You're right. You know what I mean?
It sets the tone.
Yeah.
Kind of invites you, kind of opens the door. Sometimes you walk into a service and it just starts and then you're kind of like, whoa, okay.
Yeah, I'm not ready.
Yeah, I wasn't ready. And then I think that's very inviting. And for me, I prefer that rather than just jumping into a song because then it gives me time to just sit and think, okay, why am I here? This is why I'm here. And now I'm ready to worship kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. That's like if you've ever been on a cruise, and I love going on cruises, there's always a cruise ship, director guy. And so every little event you go to, before you enter into the event, he sets the table for you, right? Tonight we're going to do the newlywed couple game, everybody. Right? And he sets it up for you. You don't just walk up and go, all right, newlywed game, here we go. You know what I'm saying? He sets it up. Here's what we're doing. Here's where we're headed. Now let's go together.
Yeah.
And I don't know. To me, that's leadership. And I think people need that. People need to be led. And so let's lead them.
Awesome.
And by led, I mean served, by the way. I don't mean you will do this. I mean served and aided and helped and cared for. That's what I mean.
Yeah, I was leading worship at a liturgical church in Kansas City a couple of years ago, and before I became the worship leader, there was a previous worship leader who was, having a lot of difficulties with people responding in worship, and I basically stepped into my role, and I decided I want to approach it from a shepherd and teaching standpoint, and I really felt like maybe they just need to be taught, what the Bible says about worship, how we respond. So I, lovingly shared scripture from Psalms and, how we're supposed to lift our hands, lift our, voices and clap. And so many people actually thanked me that I actually pointed out scriptures that they had no idea that existed. And, I had a great response from that, and people started to engage in worship. So a lot of it, I think, comes from just, that heart of wanting to serve the people and, show them the truth and guide them,
Yeah, and you know what else too, Wisdom? And this isn't in my CFREs, but I'm really starting to believe this is more and more true, is story. Story wins. In every environment of life, story wins. If you want to be effective in your communication style, tell stories. And we have at our community group, that we do first and third Sundays. Shout out to our community group. Every week we have a testimony. Somebody from our group shares a testimony pertaining to whatever it is we're going to talk about. And something about that, and so I've been thinking a lot about the concept of just sharing stories of God's goodness, God's faithfulness, God's presence, God's realness in our lives. I shared a story this past Sunday. It's exciting to tell the story. We just had a little baby boy, Judah Fike, and he's a stud. He's around the corner over there. Anyway, he's awesome. He's a great kid. When Judah was in the womb, they were able to do an ultrasound and see that he was going to be born with one kidney. And the other kidney, was fully functional. And they were like, listen, he'll live a long life. Keep him away from contact sports and soda. And so we were like, okay. And I just kept thinking, whose report will you believe? Whose report will you believe, right? And so I started praying. I remember I was sitting with Dustin Smith, and I told him, I said, and Dustin's all about healing. I said, I'm praying that the Lord multiplies his kidney, the one that he has. I'm going to pray that the Lord would multiply his kidney. I want him to be born with the right amount of kidneys. So that was the language I used. Okay. And somewhere around there, Dustin and I and David Leonard wrote that song, God Who Moves the Mountains. And I was thinking about Judah a ton during that time. And so I told the church, after we had written God Who Moves the Mountains, I shared that song, and I told the church about Judah. And I said, so church, will you pray with me that the Lord will multiply his kidney? They're like, sure, whatever, right? Yeah, we'll do it. And so 2.5 weeks ago, Dana went, or 3 weeks ago, I don't remember when, she went to the doctor with Judah. Now that he's out, they can actually do an ultrasound on him. And they can look at him instead of looking at him through Dana, right? And so on the left side, where there was no kidney in the womb, sure enough, no kidney. It's not there. However, on the right side, there looks to be what they think might be 3 kidneys on the right side of his body. One of them they think will never work. It's fully dormant. It's not active. But 2 of them they think are the right amount. They're fully functional kidneys.
Wow.
So someone in heaven got the message and heard multiply, and they said, "How does 3 sound?" And so,
wow,
on the same side.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So I told that story at church Sunday, and it just was like this. You know what? Wow. Yeah, God is real. God is active. He is moving. He's not the God of yesterday. He's the God of now, and the God of tomorrow. And you know what I'm saying? And so, I just think the more we can do to present a picture of the living God, not the one who was, the one who is. The more we can do that, the more people will be inspired to engage in deeper, more meaningful ways. And so if I have to come up with a way to say that in C-over-E, but but it's the concept of story, the concept of testimony. So
yeah, that's awesome. Thanks for sharing that with us. And I hate to end this, but our time is up for today. But we would love to have you back at some point, Richie. And next time you're in Nashville, you'll have to be on Mondays with Morgan.
Yes.
For our YouTube show. So
I know I'm boning up on my speed round questions. I've been watching them.
Well, now I have to change all my questions if you're watching them.
Okay. Yeah.
If you guys want to send us a comment about this topic or any of our topics that we've covered so far, you can email us at hello@weareworshipusa.com, or you can connect with us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or Snapchat. Under We Are Worship USA. And next week, you can join us on Wednesday at 3 p.m. Central, same time, same place. And we'll be joined by Carolina Soto from NCC Worship, National Community Church, from Washington, D.C. area. And she'll be actually sharing her story about just facing cancer as a worship leader and what she learned from that journey. So it's going to be really powerful. So hopefully you guys can join us. So you can see our upcoming schedule at weareworshipwednesday.com. So we would love for you to be a part of each and every one of those. So Richie, thank you so much for joining us today once again.
Thanks, Richie.
It was really good stuff.
Hanging out with you.
Yeah, good seeing you guys. God bless y'all.
All right. Have a great time with your team there.
Yeah, we will. We will. All right, guys. Peace.
Bye.